She stepped out of a dust-caked truck wearing a faded gray hoodie and worn tactical boots. No name, no insignia, no reputation. Among the deadliest shooters on Earth, she was dismissed without question. They called her Mouse, laughed as they placed bets on how fast she'd fold. But as elite operatives fumbled under fire and vanished from the board one by one, she never missed, never flinched, never spoke. Until the day the last name was crossed out, and they finally realized she wasn't there to compete. She was there to decide who was still worth keeping alive. They called it the World Tactical Symposium, but no one ever said the name out loud. There were no banners, no logos, no sponsors, just an unmarked gate sunk into a wall of rust-colored concrete in the middle of the Utah desert, where wind whipped sand like razors and the sun bled into cracked rock. Inside, the best of the worst gathered. Not influencers, not weekend warriors. These were the men who didn't have medals because their missions never officially happened. Contractors with blood on 3 continents. Ex-operatives with blurred faces in old war photos. Ghosts who walked like gods. And every 4 years, they came here to prove they still mattered. They didn't expect her. The truck she stepped out of looked dead on arrival. Dust-choked grill, dented fenders, one headlight held in with tape. She wore a gray hoodie, hood up, loose tactical pants, scuffed boots caked in dried salt. No vest, no rig. A canvas duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Faded green, corners frayed. No patches, no rank, no name. Just her. A group of contestants gathered by the intake station turned their heads, then laughed. Sharp, clipped, amused. Who's she with? Logistics? Maybe she's here to refill the water jugs. She walked past them like they weren't there. At the table, the intake officer, hard jaw, eyes like dust, looked up. He didn't ask for ID, just scanned her once, top to bottom, then tapped his clipboard. Name. Jane Holloway, she said. Calm, flat. Unit. She paused, then answered, just as quiet. 0. The pen in his hand froze for half a beat. His jaw flexed once. Then he stood, stepped aside, and motioned her through. Behind her, someone muttered, "What the hell is Unit 0? Someone else snorted. Sounds made up, probably Air Force. The laughter returned, low but meaner now. Someone started calling her Mouse. It stuck. The others had names like Reaper, Spade, Kilo, Dryfire. They wore sleeveless tops showing corded arms and tattooed kill counts. Their gear gleamed under the sun. Rifles with custom rails, pistols with hand-engraved slides, holsters molded to their hips like armor. She had none of that. Mouse, someone called as she passed the gear line. Want me to carry that bag for you? Might tip you over. No response, not even a glance. Inside the compound, the air changed. The noise quieted. Dry wind gave way to silence, engineered by men who spent their lives teaching others how not to die. Concrete structures rose out of the sand like bunker ghosts. Shoot houses, kill corridors, sniper towers, all arranged in perfect chaos. No cameras, no broadcasting. The only thing recorded here was performance. The only thing remembered was who walked out standing. Jane walked straight to the empty bench at the edge of the briefing zone. She didn't greet anyone, didn't ask questions. She unpacked her bag. Inside, one plain sidearm, no mods, one pair of gloves, a folded paper map, and a small black notebook, edges curled from sweat and use. Across the compound, a contestant nudged his buddy. "She brought a notebook," he said, smirking. "Maybe she's here to learn something." Another voice, colder. "Don't worry, she will." At sundown, the briefing began. The lead instructor, only known as Vance, outlined the first day's drills. Night fire hostage rescue, live ammo, No second runs. No medic until sunrise. He didn't mention her. She didn't speak. But as the briefing ended and the names were called, one name wasn't on the list. No one noticed, except her. She looked down at her map, turned to page 3, and drew a single red X over the name. Number 47, fail on entry. Then she closed the notebook and waited. The first drill began before the moon finished rising. Live hostage extraction under blackout conditions. 3-man teams. One objective: breach, identify, neutralize. Targets moved. Hostages screamed. Rounds were live. Mistakes weren't simulated. They were punished. Jane was the only one not placed in a team, so they stuck her with Team 12, Spade and Dryfire, 2 overbuilt contractors who'd made their careers in Iraq kicking down doors and filming the aftermath. They didn't look pleased. "You sure she's not an admin error?" Spade asked Vance. "Or, you just feeding us ballast for balance?" Vance didn't answer. He just nodded toward the kill house. Spade rolled his eyes. "Fine. Mouse, stay out of our way. Watch the back door. Don't shoot unless you see God." Dryfire tossed her a radio. Didn't turn it on. No one asked what Jane had packed. She didn't carry a rifle. Just the plain pistol at her hip, grip worn to mat. Her gloves were stitched at the knuckle, the kind that didn't try to look impressive, just built to do the work. The siren dropped. Team 12 breached first. Inside, chaos. Target silhouettes popped in and out of view. Flashbangs cracked through the air. Someone screamed, too real for simulation. Spade cursed. Dryfire rushed ahead, careless. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows. Not a target, not a hostage. Real, unexpected. He moved like a shadow that had teeth. Dryfire fired too late. Spade shouted something guttural. The figure lifted his rifle, and then he dropped. 3 shots, 2 chest, 1 head, all fired from behind, from Jane. Smoke curled from the muzzle of her sidearm. She stepped past Spade, calm, silent, crouched beside the downed threat. Checked the ID tag clipped to his belt. Red mark. Live agent. She looked back at the 2 men still frozen in place, eyes wide. Dryfire's hands trembled on his rifle grip. "Threat cleared," she said quietly into the radio, even though it was never switched on. The room buzzed. Someone up in the catwalks, an evaluator, dressed in full gray, scratched something onto a clipboard. Gave her a single nod. Jane holstered. Walked out without waiting for orders. Behind her, Spade finally exhaled. What the fuck just happened? At camp that night, the tone shifted. People still called her Mouse, but not with the same humor. Now there was hesitation behind it. Like maybe she heard more than she let on. Maybe she saw more, too. They whispered. She double-tapped a red tag. No confirmation. She didn't even ask, just moved. Someone checked the team roster. None of them remembered seeing her name when the slots were drawn. But her badge scanned green. Her record was marked active, cleared. And that shot grouping? Dead center. All 3. Even the headshot. Under pressure, in partial light. "You know," someone muttered around the fire pit, "if she'd waited half a second, Dryfire would be down." The man himself stayed silent. Up on the ridge, Jane sat alone on a slab of cold stone, her back to the firelight, notebook open in her lap. She didn't write. She just stared. On the next page, her pencil had already marked the margin. Team 12, compromised. Spade, over-aggressive. Dryfire, no trigger discipline. She looked up at the stars, and beneath their cold shimmer, the names began to fall into place, one by one, in silent red ink. By dawn, one name was gone from the board. Contestant number 47, disqualified. No explanation, no briefing. Just a thin red line drawn across his number at the edge of the mess tent. His bunk was empty before the first coffee boiled. No one saw him leave. They said nothing, because that was the rule. At the symposium, people didn't leave. They were removed. Day 2 brought the gauntlet drills. Close quarters, confined corridors, no map, no light, no callouts. The walls were rubberized steel. The targets were human. You either cleared or you got cleared. Spade was up first, still rattled from the night before, but trying to mask it with louder laughter and bolder talk. 1 hallway, 5 doors, 10 kills. Mouse better take notes. Jane sat near the back of the queue, head down, notebook open. She didn't film, didn't glance up, just kept writing. Spade went in hot. You could hear his boots hammering the metal grates, the crack of suppressed fire bouncing off steel. 5 minutes later, he came out panting and red-faced, slapping mags into his vest like it proved something. He grinned wide, until the instructor handed him the target summary. 2 hostiles missed. 1 hostage hit. His name stayed on the board, but it shifted, dropped, marked yellow. Dry fire fared worse. Froze in room 3. Wasted his mag dump on a silhouette wired to a pressure charge, one designed to simulate IED blowback. He came out covered in chalk dust and silence. His name turned orange. Then came Mouse. She didn't speak when her name wasn't called, because there was no name to call. But the range officer held up a small tag and nodded toward her. She moved without sound. No gear clatter, no muttering, just motion. Smooth, ghost-like. Inside the gauntlet, then a single muffled pop. Then 2 more. Then silence. 3 minutes later, she walked out. The instructor didn't say a word. Just looked down at the target results and clicked his pen once. On the board, there was no name to adjust, so the pen moved elsewhere. Contestant number 42, red line. Number 38, red line. Whispers swirled across the chow area. That's 3 red lines in 12 hours. All guys who've had drills with her. She's not competing. By mid-afternoon, the phrase started circulating, low and nervous. Who invited her? They checked the roster. Jane Holloway wasn't listed. Not as a contestant, not as support. But every time she stepped on the range, the scanners read green. The officers never questioned her. Some even nodded. Someone tried to ask one of the range masters about it. The man only answered, "If you're asking, it means you've already failed." That night, no one sat near Jane at the fire. She didn't seem to notice. Instead, she flipped a page in her notebook. The pencil scratched methodically. Hashtag 42. Misidentifies civilian silhouettes under stress. Hashtag 38. Poor auditory filtering in enclosed space. Hashtag 12. Reliant on partner coverage. 0 solo clearance confidence. Spade. Afraid of darkness. She paused, then added. Dryfire. Afraid of silence. Across the camp, Dryfire stared at her profile from his cot, his hands clenched beneath the blanket. Up on the hill, someone finally asked the instructor, "Sir, who is she?" Vance looked up from his clipboard. His voice was quiet, unreadable. "She's not here to win. She's here to watch." He tapped the eraser of his pencil against one name on the board. Paused, then drew a 4th red line. By day 3, the jokes had stopped. No one called her Mouse anymore. Not to her face. Not even in whispers. The name was a ghost now, like everything else about her. The schedule shifted. The next drill was listed only as protocol room. No map, no rules, just a list of pairings. 2 contestants enter, 1 exits. Dryfire was paired with Jane. He laughed when he saw the list, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Guess they want me to clean house," he muttered, loud enough for nearby ears. No one responded. The protocol room sat at the edge of the compound, a cinder block shell with a steel door and mirrored glass. Inside, it was a single hallway with 2 side rooms. 1 hostage, 1 hostile. No information beyond that. But everyone knew the real test. Identify intent under pressure. Mistake a hostage for a threat. You're red tagged. Mistake a threat for a hostage. You're dead. Dryfire went in first. Jane followed 30 seconds later. The cameras inside streamed only to the instructors. The rest waited in tense silence. 5 minutes passed. Then 7. Then a single shot cracked. Another. Then nothing. The door opened. Jane stepped out, alone. The crowd stirred. A medic team rushed in, not with urgency, but precision, as if they'd expected it. Dryfire emerged minutes later, on a stretcher. Conscious, barely. A tourniquet tight around his upper arm, clean wound, non-lethal. The kind of shot that ended a fight, not a life. Vance stood at the doorway, unreadable. Someone finally asked, "Was it a malfunction?" "No," Jane said quietly, eyes still on the dirt. It was a choice. In the instructor tent, the red lines multiplied. Dryfire, red. 2 more from previous drills, red. By the time dusk hit, nearly a third of the names had vanished from the board. Jackal, a former Delta Force sniper, stood and snapped his clipboard in half. "This is a damn purge she's not on." Someone challenged Vance, directly. "What the hell is she doing here? She's not even listed. This isn't protocol." Vance finally looked up, calm, sharp. "It's exactly protocol." He walked to the board, drew a line beneath all remaining names, then flipped it. On the back, 3 words, "Evaluation phase begun." And then, below it, in faded black ink, another name appeared. A name none of them had seen until now. Jane Holloway, evaluator. That night, everything turned. Campfires burned quieter. Conversations hushed. Eyes shifted when she walked by. Some tried to justify their performances, thinking maybe she could be convinced. One competitor, Nero, former SAS, approached her near the ammo dump. "Look," he said, offering a cold bottle of water. "I know we got off on the wrong foot. This event's not what it used to be. Too much posturing. You and me, we could run real training." Jane took the bottle, examined the label, set it gently back on the crate. "N, you missed 2 silhouettes in the kill house, both tagged blue, unarmed civilians." His smile cracked. "I was moving fast. You were panicking." She turned, walked away. Behind her, Nero stood frozen, like she'd fired a shot and it just hadn't hit him yet. At midnight, the instructors began packing. The symposium was ending early. No ceremony, no fanfare, just a note tacked to the mess tent. "To those who remain, you were not the best. You were the last. Unit 0. And beneath it, scrawled in fine black pen, "Ghostmaker." By morning, the compound was nearly empty. Trucks kicked up long tails of dust as they pulled away from the grounds, one by one. No goodbyes, no second chances. Red line names were already gone. Some vanished before dawn. Others escorted off the premises with clipped nods and no eye contact. The board that once held 50 names now showed only 7. 7 who stayed. 7 who weren't marked. 7 who knew better than to ask why. Jane Holloway hadn't moved from her spot at the edge of the range. She sat on a crate of unused sim rounds, elbows resting on her knees, eyes fixed on a paper silhouette target swaying gently 50 meters downrange. 10 holes, tight as breath, drilled through the same inch of its chest. A wind kicked up across the salt flat, dry and whispering. It rattled the tin roof of the observation shack and sent the discarded bingo cards of earlier drills fluttering into the dust. A few remaining contestants watched her from a distance, silent. One approached. It was Rook, the only one who hadn't mocked her since day one. A former CIA paramilitary, gray at the temples, voice like gravel. He didn't salute, just stood beside her, hands behind his back. "You were the ghost story," he said. She didn't look at him. He continued. "I heard rumors, years ago, about a shooter who trained Black Cell, Task Meridian, 0 Point. Never deployed, never needed to. Just showed up once every few years to see who still deserved to carry a weapon." Jane said nothing, but they said you were gone, dead or disappeared. "I was," she replied, softly. Rook nodded. "Why come back?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were pale, colorless in the flat daylight. "Because ghosts don't bury themselves," she said. "Someone has to finish the audit." Later, as the sun crested, Vance walked to the board with a clipboard in hand. He marked a final column beside each remaining name. Cleared. Conditionally retained. Retrain you. No one questioned the verdicts, because they knew who had signed them. One of the instructors approached Jane with a sealed folder. Thick, stamped with the black triangle insignia of Unit 0. Her orders. She didn't open it. She took a breath, then stood. Walked across the compound to a metal bench facing the range. She laid her pistol down, stripped, clean, magazine out. The same sidearm she'd used since day one. From her duffel, she pulled a folded cloth. Simple canvas, stained at the corners. She wrapped the pistol in silence, slow and deliberate, tying the corners with a firm knot. The wind caught the cloth's edge, lifting it slightly to reveal black thread stitched into the lining. Unit 0, leave no sound, leave no shadow. She placed the bundle on the bench, left it behind. Her boots pressed into the salt as she walked out across the flats. No convoy waited, no transport. She walked alone. Mia, one of the logistics staff who had never spoken to her directly, lifted a camera once, just once, to capture her disappearing into the mirage. Then lowered it. Thought better of it. Some exits don't need footage, only memory. That evening, when the compound was completely empty, a single piece of paper was tacked to the steel gate. Handwritten. No heading. No signature. If your name was not crossed out, don't celebrate. You weren't better. You were just not the worst. Until next time, if you still dare to come. And beneath that, a single hole. Dead center.